and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Okay, I said this would happen. It would continue on even more. But first, I got to get you all angry. I have to get all of you upset. The attack against Dr. Cornel West is beginning to intensify even further towards third parties, towards independents. You guys here? Hey, look, everyone. David Axelrod has entered the room. In 2016, the Green Party played an outsized role in tipping the election to Donald Trump. Now, with Dr. Cornel West as their likely nominee, they could easily do it again. Risky business. Well, first of all, David, right here. But also, number two, I want to pull up this video tweet that was posted by Compton J, who was, again, one of the many commentators on Revolutionary Blackout Network, The Nation, Jacobin, David Axelrod, and other professional managerial class types are terrified of Dr. Cornel West being in the general election, to which I have to say, I am very happy that Dr. Cornel West is going to be in the general election. I am very happy that the Green Party is getting an extra boost in support. I'm very happy that more people are identifying themselves as independents. And yes, I'm very happy that Vote Blue, no matter who, is being triggered by the rise of a third-party movement in the Green Party. So very good across the board. But it's interesting to see how much corporate media wants to cause people to panic. The Nation did an article saying why Dr. Cornel West should run in a Democratic primary. Well, I think we already know how I'm going to respond to that. The Democratic primary is rigged. Running as a progressive in the Democratic primary is a fool's errand. You're never, ever, ever going to succeed. The system is set up against you. Just look what they did to Bernie Sanders, who allowed it to happen. And look at what they did to Tulsi Gabbard. And to be fair, look, I'm just going to say a controversial statement here. And this might trigger a lot of diehard Bernie Sanders supporters, but I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I'm going to say in 2020, Tulsi Gabbard fought harder than Bernie. There we go. Yes, she did endorse Biden. Not a fan of that. But she did tell her supporters, hey, vote how you feel like. But she did that. But at least she fought, and dealing with a massive amount of censorship and the attacks towards her, she was able to at least walk out with dignity, in my point of view, and from my perspective. But nonetheless, Bernie didn't fight. And because of him not fighting and allowing the DNC to screw him over in 2016 and 2020, running as a Democrat in any future election cycle is a fool's notion. So all the best to RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson. Be consistent and fight all the way and document everything. But I want to play this video now of Dr. Cornel West being talked about on everyone's favorite sinking ship, CNN.
Former senior advisor to President Obama, David Axelrod, warning Biden could be facing a third-party spoiler, specifically from Green Party candidate Cornel West. Axelrod tweeting, quote, in 2016, the Green Party played an outsized role in tipping the election to Donald Trump. Now, with Cornel West as their likely nominee, they could easily do it again. Risky business.
Now, I'm going to pause it here. I'm going to try and keep my pausing to a minimum. But, again, even if all the Greens decided to vote for Hillary Clinton, she would not win the Electoral College. And who's to say all those Greens would have voted for Hillary if they couldn't vote for Dr. Jill Stein in 2016? Who's to say any of the Libertarians would vote for Hillary? Let's say both parties, all the voters went to Hillary Clinton. She might win the popular vote, but does she win the key thing? And that is the Electoral College. And you know what? Just to trigger the vote blue, no matter who, people, ideally, I don't see third-party candidates winning the White House. But what I would love to see is not only third-party candidates, the Greens, Libertarians, get 15% in polling or above, but also get 7% and above in the general election. And dare I say it, I'll go one step further. How wonderful and what a wonderful sight it would be, and I'm only speaking just from an idealist point of view, to see at least the Green Party and the Libertarian Party win one electoral college. That would be a sight to see, because I want to see that happen. So this whole idea of third parties being spoilers, it's just propaganda.
This comes as less than 40% of Americans say they view Biden or Trump favorably. Almost 1 in 4 voters, in fact, say they don't like either candidate.
Then how come you didn't put in Dr. Cornel West's name? Because he's a third-party candidate.
Which is a key part of Cornel West's pitch.
I just thought about all the creative, imaginative, courageous fellow citizens that I meet And how do we end up with the two candidates? Trump on the one hand, Biden on the other. Good God. With Brother Trump, you've got a gangster in the objective sense. And with Biden, again, I love the brother, but he's a hypocrite. And he's pushing toward World War III when you talk about what he has to say about China and Russia.
Out front now, Joe Biden, Republican strategist, former Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, and Basil Smikle, Democratic strategist, former executive director of the New York State Democratic Party. Gentlemen, it's nice to see both of you tonight. You were both sort of nodding your heads as we were playing that sound from Cornel West, which was so interesting. He's been a major figure in progressive politics for some time. So now we see where he's going. This recent NBC News poll really stood out to me. 45% of Democrats say they'd consider backing a third-party candidate. Compare that to 34% of Republicans. How concerned do you think Joe Biden should be tonight?
He should be a little concerned, and I'll say this because my affinity with to Cornel West. He's my frat brother. I got my PhD in part because I was drawn intellectually to the heft of his scholarship. So he resonates, and he has resonated particularly with the African American community for quite some time, for decades, frankly. So if you're Joe Biden, you know this is likely to be a close race, whether it's DeSantis or Trump, whoever it is, that it's those margins in some states, in a handful of states, where this third-party candidate could be effective, particularly when you look at 2022, you see that numbers, especially in the African-American community, were not where the Democrats needed them to be.
And again, this is the problem with the Democratic Party. They constantly lie to their base. They constantly take them for granted. Case in point, how they've treated the Black community, Latino community, hell, even college students. The Democratic Party needs Democratic voters to be afraid, people unable to think for themselves. The Democratic Party needs individuals that are subservient to them. And I think people are tired of being abandoned, being lied to. And I am proud to say that we are seeing more Americans identify as independents or breaking away from voting Democrat or Republican. Maybe it's not the pace that I would like it to be at, but nonetheless, this is something that we have talked about on Hard Lens Media. Voters are going to get to a breaking point to where either they're going to be disengaged from politics, and that's understandable. I get why people want to disengage from politics. I would advise against that, but I understand it, and it's reasonable. There are just reasons why people would not want to be involved in the political system whatsoever or vote. But also, on the other hand, you see people who want to change things, who want to vote independent, who want to change the system for the better. And I think we're witnessing that now in this election cycle. And again, vote blue no matter who. The propaganda of Trump, 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 Trump has been played out. You're like a singer who only had a one-hit wonder, and then that's it. Is that all you got? Is that all your material? Don't waste our time.
So if there is concern about how close the general election might be, with memories of Jill Stein from 2016, this should concern Biden and Democrats a little bit, based on the issues that Cornel West will be able to address.
So a little bit of a concern for Biden and the Democrats. What about for the Republicans?
Well, look, I think for me personally, if Democrats seem to think that Cornel West is the problem, then they don't seem to recognize why they lost to President Trump in 2016 in the first place. It certainly was not because of Jill Stein. It was because there was a blue collar revolt from people who felt as if the Democratic Party had left them behind. And so for me, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you see somebody like Cornel West, who, politics aside, has dedicated his life to justice. The only thing they should have to say to him is thank you. And instead, they send somebody like David Axelrod, the architect of the Obama generation, to go out there and take the hats to him, to try to marginalize him, which I think, again, plays into exactly everything he's talking about, that this is a party that is more concerned with the status quo than they are with the safety and security of Black and brown communities. And I would also say that we can't forget that this is the same Cornel West that, again, was ostracized because he wanted to support somebody like Bernie Sanders that wanted to push a little further, was ostracized because he wanted to have a Black State of the Union back with Tavis Smiley, to talk about what was rightfully owed to a Black community that came out in record numbers to help elect the first Black president. So again, for me,
again, what he's saying is not wrong. And looking at the smear tactics towards Dr. Cornel West, he is wrongly being vilified by the Democratic Party. They're viewing him as a spoiler candidate. Now, I am happy to have interviewed Dr. Cornel West, And I've seen him on Revolutionary Blackout Network and a few other channels as well. And to which I have to say, I am more than happy to have him back on my show and to see further interviews of him on other independent shows where he is sharing his campaign and overall his message to voters. Because the Democrats cannot monopolize on how people should think or feel. All what the Democrats have are broken promises and fear tactics. That's all what they're going to offer voters. And if that's all you're going to offer me, then I have every right to tell people to stay disengaged from the Democratic Party and to vote independent. The Democratic Party has already shown us how they really feel about us. They don't like us. They don't think about us. They don't respect us.
It just confirms what many believe is that the Democratic Party seemingly has forgotten about what they claim is their core conviction, trying to make sure they can deliver results to multi-generational poverty and despair for the people that effectively are the bedrock of that party.
You know, it's interesting. I was struck today, the fact that Cornel West, who we know was a major surrogate, obviously, for Bernie Sanders,
Yep.
so was Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who today said she's supporting Joe Biden. Take a look.
Now, again, I'll save my commentary on AOC, but nonetheless, who's here surprised seeing AOC support Joe Biden? I mean, the failure is now complete. Both AOC and Bernie are irrelevant in my point of view. That whole revolution, that movement, they killed it. They're the ones who ended it, not the people.
Listen.
I think he's done quite well, given the limitations that we have.
He's done quite well. He exceeded expectations. I give him an A+ because it's about the macro and the micro and the macaroni and cheese and the micro machines.
I do think that there are ebbs and flows.
Will you be supporting Joe Biden for re-election?
I believe, given that field, yes.
How significant is it that she is saying that at this stage?
Right. No, it's incredibly significant because in some ways it pulls a lot of her supporters in the direction of Joe Biden and away from thinking that maybe we should be looking at somebody else. Because look, Joe.
Now, let's be very clear. Let's have democracy in the chat. How successful do you think AOC will be in regards to getting her followers and supporters to vote for Joe Biden after all of his broken promises? Type 1 if you think, well, there's a lot of vote blue no matter who sheep and people who can't think for themselves, kids. So, yeah, most likely everyone's just going to vote for Biden. Type 2 if you think, no, not this time around. People are tired. People are burnt out. And she doesn't have the same pull as she used to. And I'm talking about AOC, that is.
Maybe we should be looking at Cornel West.
Maybe we should look at Cornel. So a lot of folks will argue Joe Biden's numbers are soft. I don't think there is necessarily a concern that a lot of voters will go and vote for Cornel West, but it may tamp down turnout because you don't have that sort of movement candidate in a Joe Biden. And to everything you said, it's absolutely right. In terms of communities of color, particularly for the Black and brown communities, that Cornel West speaks to a lot of those concerns. Joe Biden needs to take some of that on the campaign trail.
And as we've covered, Joe Biden is not going to be on the campaign trail. He's only going to be campaign fundraising.
So to that point that you're both making, she was then asked about Cornel West, and she referenced that. So I think we have that sound as well.
What do you make of Cornel West's campaign?
You know, I think Dr. West has an incredible history in this country. What he fights for, what he gives voice to is incredibly important. And the ability for us to talk about issues that, frankly, mainstream Democrats are often too afraid to touch.
I mean, Joe, that's essentially what you were saying. I mean, and you're both agreeing with each other, right? So what is the potential, not just for Cornel West to maybe peel away some of those voters and maybe even beyond people of color, right? We're talking about working class voters, full stop, in this country who are looking for somebody to talk about their issues. Could he also pull some away from if it's a Donald Trump as the nominee?
Well, look, you see even now with somebody like RFK Jr., who is starting to attract some traction from some Republican voters. So there is a fervor in America for people who are willing to speak to the populist ambitions of the nation, but also the core bedrock actual terrible deficiencies within our Main Street construct. So yes, I think if Dr. West was being wise, he'd probably just abandon everything he's doing everywhere.
In regards to my previous question, I'm seeing Colin Radix Carter type 1, but also Dances Aardvarks in regards to AOC getting enough people to vote for Biden. Dances Aardvarks writes, simps are gonna simp. Yeah, I could see a bunch of simps simping and listening to AOC and saying, okay, we got to support Biden. By the way, to be a simp, so low, so very, very low. Never be that.
And move to Iowa. There's a long tradition of grassroots grassroots support, particularly more in the populist and more liberal-leaning bent in those Democratic caucuses. So he should be going to all 99 of those counties and then go back again, then go back again. The South Carolina primary has already been rigged. Certainly Democrats trying to figure out whether they're going to move it up or leave it where it is. So there's not a lot of oxygen there where, again, they say they know Joe. I think that's where he could have some impact. But I think to your point, there is a broad consensus from all Americans that we want to have somebody that speaks to the fact that we're spending money on wars abroad. We're not dealing with the fact that we've got public housing in crisis here at home.
Fair enough. And we're going to end this video here. There's one more minute left in there. But what's the overall takeaway from this? First of all, obviously CNN, I don't think they were prepared to have two guests on their show. More or less correct the record on why Dr. Cornel West can resonate with voters and why actually he has a lot of push and pull. That's right. Dr. Cornel West campaign, if it takes off and if he remains on this path of being on other independent media shows, but also sharing his message and reaching out to all voters, there is a very likely scenario that the Green Party could gain a significant following and a huge boost in numbers and perhaps gain some ground for the first time in a long time in this political system. Now, again, election integrity here in the United States, what is that? I don't know what that is because we never had it. But I think it's important for us to remember that the Democratic Party, liberals, the vote blue, no matter who people, they're afraid. They know that their tactics aren't going to work this time. And watch it get ugly. Watch the bullying become far more confrontational because it's going to be a lot of these liberals and these vote blue no matter who sheep. They're going to get in your face and tell you, don't vote green, don't vote libertarian, don't vote independent, don't support citizen ballot initiatives. We have to support Biden because Trump. Well, no, because this is where you get to push back and you get to raise up your voice. And this is the time where you get to raise the ruckus because the Democrats do not follow through with their promises. They're an abusive spouse. They're somebody who will cheat on you, steal from you, hit you, spit in your face, and disrespect you at every single opportunity. And because they don't respect you, we don't have to respect the liberals or the vote blue no matter who sheep that are going to bully you and tell you how to feel. And you know what? We could always push back and say, hey, I wouldn't be voting third party or independent if the Democrats actually had follow through, if the Democrats actually cared. And because they don't care, I'm not going to care. This election cycle will start to intensify. So stay tuned to Hard Lens Media as we continue covering third parties because they should be on the debate stage. They should be on the ballot. And it is in your right to choose something other than Democrat or Republican.